Hello there, my name is Eric Mahaffey, and for the last quite a few years I've been playing with the banking system. In 2008 there was a financial crisis, a crash that happened because the banks stopped loaning money. I am an electrician by trade, and as being an electrician I depend on construction and construction projects in order to keep myself employed. And what's interesting is when the economy slows down and the money system slows down, it's the people who actually build America that tend to get hurt first. And so, to make a long story short, I had to ask the bank for some help on making my house payment. And what they basically told me is they couldn't do anything for me until I was 3 months late on my house payment. So, I trusted them and I went 3 months late on my payment. Well, they basically started dragging their feet. We were told to make half house payments for a period of time, and don't call us, we'll call you. So, all right, we dropped our house payment into half, and then realized it had been quite a while since they called us. So my wife gave them a call and said, hey, what's going on? And they said, who are you and why aren't you making your house payments? I was like, holy cow, really? They kept playing all these games. I've gone through probably 4 or 5 modifications through this whole process, trying to come up with a reasonable plan to pay my house. I was on a 15-year loan trying to get the house paid off. It would be paid off in about 2022, at that point I owed about 130, 140 on the house, somewhere in that range. With all the math they've been doing, all the games they've been playing with my account, and all the charges they've been putting on, I've been told that I owe about $260,000 to $270,000 on my home. And on top of that, since I've been missing my house payments, they want to give me a really bad interest rate because I'm no longer a good credit risk. It's been quite the nightmare trying to play with this system, trying to figure out how it works. And when you start this process out, I thought I was on good terms. The reason I got a 15-year loan is to keep the interest payments low, because I knew at that time that I didn't understand how interest got into the economy. Well, when I did the math on the payments they were offering me, they were set me up on a 40-year loan, which was pretty much amazing. That yes, the payments were a little bit low, but I would have had to work till I was 97, I believe it was. I mean, it's just long. And when I got done doing the math, adding the whole process up, I was going to pay almost 4.5 to 5 times in interest. I mean, if you want to know how much you're paying in interest on your house, you know how much you're paying, you know how many months you'll be paying it. If you take those two numbers and you multiply them, that's the total amount you're going to be paying on your home. You know how much you paid for your house because that was part of the negotiated deal. You subtract that from that total, and everything left on your calculator is what you're paying in interest. At about 3%, most people are paying about double what they borrow. At 6%, most people are paying about triple what they borrow. So I started wondering, where does that interest come from? How does that interest, if the Federal Reserve is the people who print and make our money, all right, those people, then the only way you can get money from the Federal Reserve is to borrow the money from the Federal Reserve. When you borrow money, you agree to pay back more than you borrowed. Well, if one company is making the money and distributing the money and wanting more money back for the money that they've loaned to you, how do you make the extra? Where does it come from? Let me tell you a little story I like to tell people that I call 10 people and $1,000. All right, I like to boil things down and look at it as simple as I possibly can, so that I have an understanding of the big picture. So let's try to decomplicate our economy. Let's try to bring it down into something you can understand, because right now the numbers are so huge I can't wrap my head around them, but I can get my head around 10 people and $1,000. So if we have 10 people in our world, we have $1,000. That's our entire economy. That's all the people that exist. That's easy to wrap your head around. Let's assume it starts out as a democratic society. So this democratic society, everybody gets $100. One guy says, hey, when I grow up I want to be a banker. I'm going to loan my money out. So if he's getting 6% over 30 years, that means he's going to loan out his $100 and he's going to get back $300 at the end of that run. All right. So now there's a little less money in the economy because he has his $300 and everybody wanting a little bit of a loan. So he says, cool, I'll do it again. So he loans out his $300, all right? So at the end of that time, he has $900 in his pocket. Remember, this economy only has $1,000 in it total. Okay, that's it, $1,000. So that means if he's got 900, that means the other 9 people are sharing $100. So everybody at this point is pretty broke. They really would like a loan. They really would like to get some money. So he says, cool, I'll loan you some money. Does it again. He does some quick math. He understands at the end of 30 years, he's going to be owed $2,700 in a world that only has $1,000. All right, that's happens very quickly, and it's pretty close to where we're at right now. I get a lot of my numbers and a lot of my information from a website that I enjoy that's called usdebtclock.org. All right, and if you go there, they talk about total debt. When I've looked up total debt, I hear anything from a few $1 trillion to 13 to 22 trillion dollars. And that's not what total debt is. To me, total debt is going to be government debt, it's going to be state debt, it's going to be personal debt, it's going to be banking debt, business debt, it's going to be student loans, credit cards, mortgage payments. And if you add all of that up together, you have a debt that's almost $66.8 trillion. All right? Okay, so if that's how much money we owe, then how much money do we have? All right, well, if you go back in there, I learned in the process of doing this that there's 5 different ways of actually talking about money. The last few of them don't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but the first 2 are talking about our actual change and our cash in our pocket. All right, so if you want to know how much money, greenbacks, we actually have, we're just right at, if I remember correctly, it's $3 trillion, about $3 trillion in actual money. All right, now the next thing they do is we actually have savings accounts, checking accounts, IRAs, and this is all of our money that's in ones and zeros in banks. This is what the bank believes we can get our hands on fairly easily, and this is called M2 money. And the M2 money, they figure we have about 12.8, I think it was, trillion, I'm going to call it $13 trillion. So all the money we can get our hands on, all right, is $13 trillion, and our total debt is $67 trillion. So think about that. That means we'd have to take all the money we have, all of it. I mean, to the point that the place you work wouldn't have any money left in their checking account the next day to be able to pay you or to buy the product or do whatever they can. So I mean, everything, all the money that you can think of in all the places you can think of it being, gone, and we would still owe the banks over 50 some odd trillion dollars just to pay off our current debt. So the 10 people and $1,000 and where our economy sits right now are very, very similar. So I've been trying to figure out how to fix this problem and what would be the process to actually find something that would actually start allowing us to get through to the other side of this. And to be honest with you, it's been quite a process for me. I've been trying to think about how the money works and try to understand that circle. One of the things I've been hearing recently is a lot of people saying that if we build valuable things, that somehow the building of the valuable thing will somehow take care of some of our money issues and some of our money problems. Well, I want you to think about that for a second. If you bring the money out to build your home, let's just say your home, and you borrow money and you put the process together to build your house, and then that house is a place where you can live. So then you have to go out into the work environment and you have to earn some money and more money to be able to pay it back to the bank. So my question is, where does the more come from? So I have to, if I'm going to pay back the house loan that I was just talking about, if it's my house loan, and I'm going to pay it back, I have to go out into the world and I have to find my money, plus I have to find the money you borrowed, and I then have to take that money and return it back to the bank. Now this is a 3%, because I'm just paying back about double what I'm borrowing. So at this point, your money that you borrowed is no longer in the economy anymore. So you then have to go out and hope that somebody else has borrowed some money, And so let's say those people over there borrow money. So now you go find their money, and then you can return that back to the bank. So at this point, our society is dependent on borrowing money. And this is the part that kind of spooks me. If you stop and think about it, we have a certain amount of money sitting on the table that we're all shuffling around and spending. And the amount of money sitting on the table is smaller than the total debt we owe. So by you and me doing what feels right and picking the money up off the table and giving it back to the bank, we're making the amount of money in our economy smaller, all right? And so, but we want to get this bigger. Well, the banking system understands that. So what they end up doing, now think about this, when we're having a financial crisis, the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates. Okay, why would a privately owned business, a privately owned banking system, lower interest rates to fix a financial problem in America? Well, because we're all willing at that point to run out and get a loan. And by getting a loan, we put more money on the table. And when we put more money on the table, there's more to move around, and we feel better about spending money. You know, people talk about the GDP on a regular basis, and that's really misleading in my opinion, because the GDP is kind of mixing apples and oranges, so it doesn't really hold together as well as you want. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. If you have a table full of money and you have a handful of people sitting around it, let's say 20 people sitting around the table, and everybody has $1, and they all buy from the person next to them for $1. Well, that person next to them for $1, they spend $20 in the gross domestic product, the movement of money in the economy over a period of time. So what it's talking about, it's not talking about how much money we have, it's talking about how much money is moved around. 20 people in our economy, everybody spent $1, it all moved around the table in one circle, you had a $20 GDP. Okay, now if you owe a debt, let's say you owe a debt of $5, you can still take that $5 off the table, you can give it back to the bank, and there's still money left on the table so the GDP can continue. Now, let's assume that you're where we're at right now, which is we have a huge debt with very little money on the table. But there is some. Let's say there's only $1 sitting on the table. Well, if we can stimulate business and get everybody excited about moving the money around, we can move that money, we can hand that $1 bill all the way around the table, and we still have a gross domestic product of $20, because it's talking about the amount of money moving around the table. But if we owe a debt of $5, there's only $1 sitting on the table. So, but the action of trying to actually pay our debt, you know, public debt, private debt, business debt, any of the debts, the process of paying any of those debts takes the money off the table, and we destroy our own economy. So that this is the part that I find quite scary, quite terrifying to me. So for the longest time I've been trying to figure out, how do you fix this problem? Well, I was talking with my attorney, and he reminded me of the fact that there's a thing called usury. And I started learning a little bit about usury. Look that one up, that's a fun one to play with. Through time, a long time ago, back in history, of quite a few of a couple other religions, I don't know which one they are, but also including Christian, they talk about usury. And the usury is anybody who charges interest for the use of money, money for money, for-profit money making money. Anyone using money to make money is a user, and a user or usury at that point is also considered loan sharking. So anyone charging money for money is a loan shark. Now if you look it up in Wikipedia, it will tell you that it's recently been changed to anybody charging an unreasonable interest, or someone charging excessive interest is someone doing usury. So if you do a lot of research, you start realizing that what's getting us is interest. What's hurting us is the charging of interest, for profit banking. Anybody trying to use that money to create money, money to make money, is the problem that's going on. So how do you fix this? Well, first thing that's happening, we owe more money than we've got. We owe probably, at this point, we have $67 trillion that we owe, and we only have $13 trillion in cash. So we can't pay our debt. If we try to pay off our debt, the process of paying our debt will collapse our own economy. So the first thing that has to happen is we have to have a huge forgiveness of debt. We have to have a lot of our debt just completely forgiven. We can't pay it. The process of big business making a loan actually it makes it, if you want to call it honest, makes it right if people have the ability, the risk of walking away from that loan. If you can't walk away from a loan, then you're a slave, okay? You're a slave to your money. You're a slave to your debt. So you always have to have that ability to walk away. The banking system has to know that we are this far upside down. So my question is, why would the banks want to forgive debt? Well, like I said, they know that this ride is coming to an end. So they pretty much realize that something has to happen. They understand that part of it is the forgiveness of debt. So they need to walk away from this problem, because if they're the ones at the controls when this plane crashes, they're going to get pretty badly blamed for it once we start realizing what's happened. So if they can let go, walk away, and give the money system back to us, back to the people, then I believe that would be good for them and good for us. But we need to be ready to actually control this process. Now, I've put a pamphlet together that's a little bit clearer thought out, called If Eric Ran the World. It's on ebook for both Kindle and for Nook. So if you want to go there, you can actually get it and see the thoughts laid out just a little bit clearer and a little bit more succinct from one end to the other. But here we have a situation where we need to be able to have interest-free loans, all right? Because if you charge interest, it doesn't work. So they got to give our money system back over to us. Our government needs to set up a process that will create an interest-free loan system so that we can get money, so it won't be money for money. So we can still get loans to buy our house and buy our car and do what we're used to doing. Our business can now go ahead and get interest-free loans, so our business will be have an easier time running, so we'll become a much more active and responsible business. So the next step comes down to, well, who controls our money? Okay, well, I've seen our government get twisted around pretty good, so I'm rather nervous about letting our government control it. Our money system needs to be owned by our government. It needs to be something that it's a service that's provided to us. But who actually monitors it? The one thing the Federal Reserve has done, and they've done very well, is they've controlled the money to a certain point where they avoid having us in too deep of a recession or too much money on the table. It keeps our money system fairly level by the charging of interest, bringing loans out. So you don't have this huge runaway of money which creates inflation, or you don't have this huge drop off of money which creates a severe depression. So there has to be somebody regulating the process. And I suggest that we put together a board of the people, that people that have some education, some ability, some knowledge behind them, that have some ability to control how the money goes out. And this group's job pretty much is just to try to avoid creating a spot where we end up with serious inflation or serious depression by regulating the amount of money that's on the table. If you have too much money on the table, then we have inflation, because when you buy something, you always have to buy it with about the same percentage of money that's sitting on the table. So if you double the money sitting on the table, then all the products are going to cost twice as much. So it's important that somebody actually does that. And I talk a little bit about a board and some rules and how to set the whole thing up in my pamphlet. And I lay that whole process out absolutely as best I possibly can. Now it comes down to, how do you pay for this process? Well, money for money. We've got to get rid of all money for money situations. So the banking system needs to go away. The credit card, debit card needs to go away. The payday loan people need to go away. Any process that uses money to make money, money for money, needs to go away. By creating an interest-free money system, we are going to create more jobs than we know what to do with, because suddenly people are going to have some extra money sitting in their wallet, and they're going to go out and start to buy stuff. So when you buy stuff, you make jobs, and you make jobs, people go to work. So all these folks that are going to end up, that you feel will lose their job or lose their ability to make money because of the loss of the banking system, will easily be able to find jobs on this other side when we're actually spending the money that we have and building America back up and making it work. So how do we pay for it? We bring back the debit cards. Right now, when you use your debit card and you use your credit card, you're paying, in essence, a tax to the bank. And this is actually a fairly substantial amount of money. So we could probably lower the amount of that tax that's coming out of those cards, which would be a good thing for business, and use that little bit of money to pay the people that are probably working in, oh, let's say, credit unions. So banking systems would be handed off to the banking accounts would be handed off to credit unions. Credit unions would manage that. They'd use the money through the process of us having debit cards to be able to pay for their time and their effort in there to be able to operate our money system. They'd probably eventually turn into some kind of a government employee, more like the Motor Vehicles Department or something along that lines. I mean, these are just some thoughts I'm putting together. The actual process or the procedure needs to be put together by this board. The board needs to be thinking about some of these processes and how to put them together. So once again, if you get a chance, go take a look at the pamphlet I've written. It's called If Eric Ran the World. It's on ebook. It's an ebook on both Kindle and on Nook. I think you'll find it pretty informative. And to give you a little bit of an idea of who I am, I'm a great believer in for the people, by the people, of the people. I like to find processes that allow us to be able to take care of and kind of defend and take care of ourselves. I believe that people do better when they are truly managing the idea of what I was taught as a kid as to what America is truly for and truly about. So anything that I'm trying to write and trying to put down, I'm honestly trying to think about how all of us can benefit from this and what makes it work for all of us. I'm not trying to find some way to get in it. To be honest with you, please pick up the pamphlet, read it. My email address is there. If you see anything in there that isn't working for the people, if you see something where I've had some people read it, they think the board might have a little bit of an overreach issue. Well, if you see the board having an overreach issue, please explain to me how. Okay, because I don't want that to happen. I want to find a way to make this sincerely, truthfully, and honestly work for all of us. I mean, America only runs if we all get to live to our own personal and unique version of happiness. I mean, that's basically what it says. America is about living the way you want to live. You know, when we go and vote, we have to remember that it's not me living to my morals and my morals are good for me, so they've got to be good for you also. America is about remembering that we're trying to set up a country that I understand you're going to live differently from me, and I need to remember to vote in manners that give you the ability to do that. So I believe that what I'm setting up here accomplishes some of that, at least from the point of view of how to take care of our business and our money and our banking system. And I honestly believe that this is a fairly clean, fairly simple idea. I'm not trying to radically change our money. If I get a chance, that what I'm seeing is the money will stay the same. It's going to be the same comfortable car, the same comfortable ride that we've been involved in for years. I'm going to want to put a new engine in it, maybe a new transmission, and rebuild the suspension and get it so it handles a little better and drives a little bit better. But I want something that actually works for everybody. And once again, if you can see something that isn't working, I'd like to know and I'd like to rewrite it. I hope that I made my point. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. And if you can find some way to get involved, I would love to hear from you. So if you get a chance, check it out, see what you can find. Let's make this work. Thank you.